Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. So today we are going to be talking about the road to real-time 3D transformation. So what does that really mean? It means as we're on this journey together, what have we learned along the way? What are things that we're seeing in the next 6 months? What are things that we're seeing in the next few years? And so you all have really different insights and opinions and experience levels. So I'm pumped to get some answers from you. So Tony, let's start off with you. Reflecting on some past projects, what key insights have you gained from using Unity that have influenced your future strategy decisions?
That's a good one. We work with internal and externally facing customers both. So it's a mix of insights. We found that traditional presentation means don't really fit us very well today. And so we've been able to, oh, look, there's a microphone. And it works. Okay. So we've gained a lot of insights internally as to how to accelerate our innovation cycles. And leveraging Unity's game engine, we're able to get through product prototyping, things of that nature faster. And all the way from the point of the beginning of the product development cycle, all the way to delivery and proposal to the final customer, we're able to iterate while pacing ourselves with our company's digital thread. And so we can effectively better design, make decisions around our products, and also get a higher level of engagement with our customers when we get to that proposal stage. How it's influenced our strategy really is getting us in a more digital first posture. When we are developing products, we don't have to wait on these physical prototypes for as long. So rather than spending time in the machine shop grinding, we're now actually out creating virtual prototypes, creating demonstrations of those systems and their components effectively. For decision making, we find flaws faster. And something that we've learned most recently is what to focus on most, like what those decision makers really care about internally to our business, may sometimes not exactly pair well with what the external customer expects. And so we discover that more quickly. And we've had to adapt our digital thread to get our engineering pipelines closer to our visualization pipelines. And that's where our teams really had a lot of innovation opportunity with Unity and leveraging Unity's tool set to kind of unify our entire workflows towards that product so that we're all working towards that same product, whether we're in modeling, terrain, storytelling, writing the narrative, it all works hand in hand together.
It's amazing if you think about, maybe 30 years or so, and you're submitting a proposal or doing a presentation, and maybe it's a spiral bound, book with blueprints or things like that in it to where we've come to today.
We haven't quite mandated staying away from PowerPoint.
Okay.
We're close.
Google Slides. We're good.
Yeah, once you go real time, it's hard to go back.
Perfect. Thanks, Tony. Well, I'll let you hold on to that one, Scott, because this next one's for you. So tell us a bit more about what inspired the development of your content creation platform, Bonfire, and what problems were you trying to solve and for whom?
Well, as a longtime user of Unity, sorry, speaker's a little feedbacky there. As a longtime user of Unity, I have a love for the product, a love for the vision. And one of the things that we ran into time and time again, by we, I mean myself and my colleagues, is just the reinventing the wheel that would happen over and over again, right? So even to do, and this is by no means Unity's fault, this is just the nature of any software development. In order to do even the most baseline hello world, if you will, of an enterprise project, you have all of this foundational stuff that you would have to do first. And then anytime you want to do an update, you'd have to go through the whole process again. And so it got to the point very quickly where we were like, there has to be a better way, right? A way that's synergistic with Unity, that continues to push the vision of Unity. And that's really what gave birth to the idea of Bonfire. Is we wanted to do two things. We wanted to take the learning curve and drop it as close to the floor as we could, with a no-code, low-code approach that's narrative focused, storytelling focused, no programming necessary, no artistry skills necessary. You can just come to the table where you're at. We've seen massive success there already in the enterprise training space, a lot of demand there. And then the second thing we want to do is the problem that I think we all feel in any software project is speed. Right. In an ever-changing environment like we are in today, I mean, it's going at a pace that's never been seen before. And you have to have a development speed that keeps up with it. Otherwise, you'll start a project, and before you're even out the door, it's become irrelevant. Right. So those two things really became the prime focus of Bonfire, and we're seeing a lot of success with it.
Fantastic. David, So tell us a little bit about the expanded capabilities that Capgemini brings to Unity's real-time 3D platform to help create, impactful solutions in this industrial world.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, like I said, I spent past 4.5 years at Unity working in a professional services capacity, working with clients just like yourself in industry to figure out how to do new ways of presenting information, figure out new ways to interact with data. And often, especially if you sort of rewind the clock 4 years, that was the definition of emerging technology for a lot of our clients, right? So a lot of it was science fair projects, a lot of fact-finding missions. Is this even possible? Is this something that we can do? So a lot of our work was spent evangelizing, articulating the value of real-time 3D, talking about data continuity, digital continuity across the product lifecycle. Um, and I think part of that effort led us to, thankfully, building out a relatively sound industry strategy, working with clients like yourself. That the benefit of sort of this Capgemini partnership and transition is now we're able to go wider. What we're able to do is work with a lot of key accounts that Capgemini already has, whether it's in maybe more common implementations of things like ERPs or other data storage systems. We're now able to talk to those clients about how can we expand those capabilities that you already have, add visualization on top to make that a differentiator. So what we do know, and I think nearly everyone today has talked about a data silo or has talked about data that is, it's been delivered by carrier pigeon to some guy down in engineering or whatever, right? That is a common through line no matter what tech stack people are using. Our thinking is that fundamentally, um, in terms of IO between humans, we're a little bit bandwidth limited, right? So we want to show and not tell. We want to be able to show these things, show these insights, and show this data so we can go talk to decision makers, we can talk to designers, we can talk to engineers. So being at Capgemini has allowed us to sort of expand our range of conversation to talk about Unity and the merits of real-time 3D, but come at it to sort of a whole product lifecycle perspective in partnership with the crew here from Unity.
Awesome. So a little bit about what Tony was talking about with how you're kind of presenting proposals and driving that imagination of what's possible
Exactly.
in that
Yeah.
world. Well, back to you, Tony. Would love to understand kind of adoption at Raytheon of Unity's platform and really about how it's influenced collaboration and communication. I know some of the work you do has multiple stakeholders, and how are you sharing and kind of going about that with each other?
Oh, that's a good question, Sarah. So we kind of got the cart ahead of the horse a little bit at Raytheon. we built all of these amazing visualization centers and design centers and brought in a lot of technology. And then we were at this point at which, well, now what do we do with it? And so you have all this massive, immense technology stack and room space and filling that space with the right content that people can connect with, that they can collaborate around. We found that we've been able to leverage Unity's scriptable content, like playable, like cinematic content, alongside free-form interactive content, and be able to do breakouts, live breakouts, so that we can capture the customer's careabouts in the moment and break out, focus on those things, bring those parts out, bring those capabilities forward, and also place them in a realistic format that they can visualize more simply. We take that cognitive load off of our customer. And so they're able to focus on their questions, their concerns, the conversation. It happens more fluidly, it's more dynamic, and everybody's engaged and excited rather than kind of falling asleep looking at slides and graphs and math and bar charts and line art, So it's been an experience for us, and now we're able to even leverage the multi-platform capabilities of Unity to bring those massive LED walls that we have together with the XR devices, so that we can do breakouts to them if people want to go full immersed. Whereas 15 years ago we were all putting on 3D glasses. The market's changed, but we're able to pivot to those changing dynamics using the game engine.
Yeah, one thing I was chatting with somebody about is imagine when that, Apple Vision Pro or that Quest headset, just becomes smaller and becomes part of our, everyday life. I'm kind of jealous that I don't wear glasses anymore because I feel like at some point that's going to happen for me again, either naturally or unnaturally. And it'll be interesting to see how all that tech comes together. So Scott, you guys built this amazing, platform on Unity. Like, what's next? How do you envision that possibility of kind of bringing the next stages of your business to life?
Well, it's kind of like that presentation said earlier about build upon what you have, right?
The
So,
Legos.
exactly. So, what we have today is we've got an early stage MVP that's out that checks all the boxes of what we sought to initially achieve, right? The lower learning curve and the faster development. In fact, in some use cases, we're down, I think it was said 4 to 6 months on average with Jordan's presentation.
Yeah.
That echoes what we've been seeing in the training space.
Okay.
And we've been down to as low as 14 days for some of those same modules in our particular use case. So definitely made huge progress there, but we're not done,
No.
right? With the age of AI well upon us, we are actively looking on how to integrate that technology into the platform to make it even faster, and continuing to push the needle in terms of that first minute experience, trying to make it as accessible to people as possible, to get rid of the translation layer in between the people with the idea and the people who need to implement the idea. So that way the people with the idea hopefully can be the ones that actually put it out there. So.
Interesting. So really, like, I look at people that, talk business, and I look at people that talk technology, and then there's this incredible group of people that sit in the middle and talk both sides of the house. And so how do we kind of streamline that experience?
Exactly.
Not Mark, David, apologies.
Oh, good.
Let's talk about the future, kind of, shaping the next generation of customer experiences. I think we touched upon it a little, but if we go beyond just that next 6 months or a year, where do you see that heading?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to work with a wide variety of clients at Unity and Capgemini. So getting to hear from subject matter experts is amazing because you learn a lot, whether it's healthcare, retail, automotive. One of the areas we've seen a lot of success has been in retail, consumer goods, luxury retail. What we're finding is, and you guys know this, is that brands and products are fighting for scraps of time, right? Scraps of time from their potential buyers, whether you're Porsche, whether you're Target, whoever it might be. Time is valuable because there are so many inputs that are hitting your customer, right? And what these brands are trying to figure out is how do we move to that next stage of engagement with our customers? They're beginning to expect more engagement, higher fidelity, more immersion, shinier things, better levels of interactivity. And what a lot of these brands have found is that they're not ready for those experiences yet. Conceptually, they are, but their data, once again, is siloed, it's archaic, it's 2 terabyte CAD file, something, I mean, it's not able to be used. So as they're thinking and they're seeing markers in the road like Apple Vision Pro, various other XR devices, how do we get to that spot to engage our customers? The problem is they have a lot of work to do. Like, they have to figure out how to translate that data, wrangle that data, store it, serve it, and then also possess the technical artistry to drive an engaging experience. It's not enough just to throw a model on a screen. How do you inform a user? How do you educate a user? How do you help their buying decision? Porsche over BMW over Mercedes. How do you make that different? So a lot of what these brands are trying to do is figure out how to position themselves as that next level of kind of an immersive brand, high polished brand. And part of the challenge with that is the standards around those brands are very high. So we work with Audemars Piguet, Cartier, Rolex. They care very much about their brand. They care very much about fidelity, reflections, material quality. How can we help them stand out and not just be, real-time 3D junk, right? It has to be that level of polish, that level of presentation. So trying to help your clients there, I think, is the next big step.
Fantastic. And absolutely, it's about, being able to reflect the brand. I feel like somebody was talking about brand earlier, and how, if that's not done in a way that is with, the company's standards, how do we kind of keep that going in a manner that makes sense? And so obviously in a real-time 3D environment, it's, it can be very easy, I assume, to match that, but I also have to imagine that it's very easy to not match that. And so kind of nailing that is going to be key
Exactly.
in that world. Well, I would love, I have some more, but I would love to kind of see if there's any questions in the audience that we can pivot to of where we want to go.
Yeah. Obviously, like when you're developing, different products, like source of truth plays a large role into that. So when you're working with Unity compared to like your PLM or whatever the actual product's being developed in, how do you keep that source of truth, or do you have any worries when if I'm transferring from my PLM to my asset manager, right? That I'm not working with the most up to date version, or I'm showing something to my client that might not be the most up to date.
Can I take that one?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I believe the question is, how do you maintain your source of truth when going from a heavy CAD format to a lightweight VisReady model, right? Well, you're going to love this plug, Pixie,
Ah,
right? So,
that was not planted.
yeah, you know, knowing what matters, what level of accuracy you're trying to represent really helps. You can set your thresholds, you can tessellate accordingly, and knowing your target, what your end use is going to be. So you can pre-think where it's going to land, how it's going to be used, and use those criteria to kind of set your level of expected fidelity as you process that. If you have certain things that change often, then you can tie in some automation on top of that, versus a one-off, right, where you're going to get in and set some manual things. But as you're processing the models, you can kind of make those decisions along the way and weight things as you would.
Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I was just
Please
going
do.
to add one little thing there, and that is what you're hinting at there really is how data remains still very much like locked up in silos, right? You've got all these different systems that all have their own different file proprietary types, et cetera. And so there are solutions like Pixies that are doing a fantastic job in trying to make the existing setups work. But I think ultimately what's going to need to happen is there's a fundamental change that needs to occur, and that is that monolithic app, right? Think of it as kind of like how before PDF, there were all these different types of documents and spreadsheets and everything else, and I could send you a Word document, but if you didn't have Microsoft Word installed, what are we going to do? Take a picture and send it to you, right? And so when PDF came about, it kind of created a unified language that you could then open up with just a click, right? And I think, and there's companies out there, including my own, that are trying to solve this. I think that's what's missing for us to fully unlock those silos.
Rock?
To follow up on this point, and this is probably to both of you, what do you think of USD?
Great question. All right. So, for my part, keeping in mind that I am a young startup company here, all right, so this is by no means production ready yet. But we are actively listening to the community to look at what the open standards are, what's coming down the pipe, what's seeing adoption, et cetera. And we started off with GLB, GLTF. That's been fantastic. It's seeing a lot of support, a lot of use, especially with our focus being universal platform support. The same book that you create, books in this case are our version of apps, the same book that you create for Windows desktop also needs to be able to work on Quest and mobile, et cetera, all without compiling anything or changing anything. So USD is a huge part of that, especially with Apple recently announcing that they are going to support it natively on web. So that is something that's actively being developed, but we are still waiting on Apple a little bit to polish it, let's say, before we roll it out.
For us, I would say USD usage is boiled down to how and what and why, right? So when you pull something out of CAD into a collaborative format like USD, it's an open standard, it's a one-way trip. You're not going to push USD back down into your PLM, right? You violate the source of truth. But once you pull it out of that native format up into USD, then everyone can collaborate, everyone can contribute. You have all this portability. We're still discovering exactly how to leverage that, but the possibilities are endless there. As it's a massive enabler for all sides of the workflow.
Got one back in.
When you're collaborating and there's changes that happen in those environments, how to make sure that collaboration actually gets back to the source of truth and make sure that they know that there's been collaboration.
So the question was, how do we make sure that when the collaboration happens, that those things find their way back into the source of truth? Genuinely, we take good notes. So we're working right now on ways of having data persistent between our engagements, between runtimes. That could be a tricky scenario. It's not typical to what you would see in the gaming industry, but it is. It depends on how you look at it. And so we've been doing some experimentation with that. That's been fairly fruitful. But there are ways. We have to build our content in such a manner that it's capable of remembering things.
The only thing I'll add to that is it's a work in progress. In all honesty, though, we're keeping the data separate from the binary. And so there's some options there that we can do where if you do push a change of any kind, you're changing the data where it resides, and then it gets pulled in on demand into the experience. So that certainly helps. But we by no means have a finalized solution yet.
Well, I have another question for you all. I'll let you guys keep that. Sorry. Talk to me about kind of workflow and timelines, and how can implementing, solutions like Unity help with things of that nature. So, David, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah. I'm glad I avoided the USD file format question.
Ditto.
So thank you guys.
Ditto.
Yeah, we do it all.
It's a tricky one.
But in terms of the question you were asking, I think so. I have a background actually in games, and one of the best sort of pivotal changes in my career was the idea of being able to iterate in real time. Right. That doesn't apply to just games. It applies to any use case that you've seen here today. Right. Fundamentally, if someone can see something, process that information, and instantly provide feedback and see the results of their feedback in real time, it reduces so much level of churn. I mean, think about how much time you spend a day replying to an email, tweaking, a document, sending it out for feedback, and 2 or 3 weeks later, you'll hit a final version. The idea of what you see is what you get, I think, is fundamentally how people collaborate and how people operate as cross-functional groups of developers, engineers, marketing people, whatever it might be. And as sort of a game producer, the ability to see that content in real time, see if it meets the mark, get feedback from other stakeholders, allowed us ultimately to ship a better product. So all we're doing, definitely cheating here, is just lifting that concept and applying it to industrial applications and our clients, right? This is just a new type of workflow. It's less about the technology, it's more about the thinking, it's more about the workflow, it's more about the idea of data continuity like we've been talking about. But fundamentally introducing people to that capability can be a bit mind-blowing. Like you guys are, bleeding edge ahead of the curve. I wish every client, was like you guys when it came to forward thinking. But the ability to interact in this way is new, and it's changing how people sort of collaborate and operate.
I guess I'll go next and pass it right. So we try to listen to our customers, and we do hear some different things internally versus externally facing. But those keywords like "that was awesome," or "I want to see more of that," or "that really helped me," or "that was very painful." We try to take those things from not only our customers, but also our own development teams and find ways to enhance the capability set by extending the editor. We're optimizing our workflows by reducing friction in between the different handoffs. And through customizing the solutions and using templating, things that we know are repeatable usage patterns in the business, we template that out. So that reduces our cycle time. Now we can do that thing that took us, 60 days the first time, and now we can do it in 45.
Yeah.
Next time 30, next time 14. We hit that single sprint, 2-sprint agile repetition. So that's through adding our own value into the tool set. That's what helps us a lot.
I feel my perspective is a little different overall on this particular question, just because I'm a programmer by career and then transitioned into this position as a startup. And it's going to sound like a massive Unity advertisement. It's not meant that way. But I do want to stress, I cannot exaggerate this next statement enough. I started in C++, and Unreal at that time was just kicking off. And that's the game engine I started with until I found Unity. Right now, WYSIWYG editors were already the splitting of the atom moment for game development already. But the fact that Unity had C# as a scripting language and had comparatively a absolutely blitzing faster iteration time compared to other engines, that changed the game completely. So much so that I was able to build a company off of it, now twice. And when working for Lockheed, I was able to fundamentally change the direction of projects purely because I was able to beat other companies to the punch using the faster iteration time of Unity. So that fundamentally changed the game.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to use your answer to kind of pivot to a topic that, has come up a few times. We talked about it a little bit in Barcelona as well, but talent acquisition. How are you all facing and navigating kind of challenges with talent acquisition and making sure that you're bringing in people that have the right skill sets, and also the development of employees and giving back to them in ways? So love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go first on this one if you don't mind, just because it's near and dear to my heart. Unity has a certification program that I was there when it was first announced. I was one of the first ones that got the expert cert. Absolutely love the idea. Keep doing it.
Okay.
Because the number one headache with any game engine, I feel, is talent acquisition, because it's made game development easy enough to where it's easy to pass like you know what you're doing. But it's made it significantly harder for us as employers to make sure that who we're getting actually knows what they're talking about.
Sure.
Right. And I can tell you firsthand, I've run into that multiple times, to the point where what we now do is I mean, we were already doing this mostly to begin with, but we hire more for culture fit than coding expertise. And then I usually end up boot camping up to the level that I need them to be in the first place. But I will say this, it makes a night and day difference when you have someone who knows Unity down to the underlying engine piece and knows all the quirks and what I call the Unity-isms, right?
Yeah.
Like what used to be camera.main in the update loop, for those of you who know. He gets it. Compared to someone who really has only seen a handful of tutorials online.
Yeah, and we have a wonderful like education program that really focuses on curriculum in the gaming side. And so one of the initiatives that we're working on is how do we get that into more of like the engineering and architectural space in universities. And so I think that might help folks like yourself. Tony, what are your thoughts on that?
What he said.
Okay, ditto. Great.
Well, we also definitely hire based on behaviors, and we try to hire the best in industry, as everybody does, but it can be very difficult to do that today when there's so much out there on the internet, and there's so many different options for content creation and for all the different approaches that you can take. So we've found to just take our time more
Yeah.
and look in different places than we typically would for our talent. We're a company full of the brightest engineers, and now let's talk media and arts. It's a different topic. So I think we've found some opportunity in where we look and how we look, and that's really helped us out a lot.
Some good answers. I'm a bit biased in this question, because if you need really quality developers or professional services, please give me a call. No, in all seriousness though, I think that as we've looked at hiring and growing our team, we talk about real-time 3D. We talk about what value it provides fundamentally, and we look for people that resonates with, right? And most of them have a background in or have been self-taught or trained on Unity due to its accessibility, due to the way it's licensed, due to the way it's present in schools and universities, which gives them a footing. Right, but it's also a lot of people that have had backgrounds in games that are saying, I really see value here. And I always point to Ryan from Cincinnati Children's Hospital, that we can do a lot with this technology. We can take it to other places, whether that's aerospace, medical, life sciences, automotive. What we try to find are people that are passionate about real-time 3D, and then slot them into an industry where they get really excited, where they really see a lot of value. Being here, car guys, we have a lot of car guys on our team that were like, why didn't I get to go to the Porsche Experience Center? Right. But helping them get excited about a space and then demonstrate their expertise and knowledge. We try to find people like that are thinking outside of the box of just, Unity games, whatever it might be.
Awesome.
Yep.
Sheila? Oh, sorry.
Quick question I would have is, what factors do you think are most important for us to help our customers go from POC prototype into production and really rolling out the applications and creating them?
Well, you guys answer that one first. Yeah.
So our company has a rather unique setup in that we do both our own product development as well as services using our product. So we kind of have like a three-prong setup. And so because of that, I'm going to say this with as little bias as possible, but it really is true. Expectation management is key. I cannot say that often enough, especially nowadays with so much available online. There is what I would call an inflated level of expectation of the art of the possible compared to what it will actually cost, especially with globalization taking a factor and remote work and everything else. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I have talked to a client where they've said, yeah, I want to do XYZ application. And I'm like, great, that's going to be this price tag. And they go, never mind.
Yeah.
And they're going to go find someone else to do it for half the price. And then I get a call back later where they say, hey, we paid this overseas company to do it and it doesn't work. Can you fix it? And I then quote them a higher price. So, I will say relationships, as always, is key to business. And with that, for your particular question, setting the right expectations ahead of time for each stage, being crystal clear about what's coming when, right? Using the Agile manifesto of, okay, first we're going to crawl, then we're going to walk, then we're going to run, right? Too many companies will try and jump straight to running, and it never works.
Did you have a response?
Yeah, Sheila, you might know my answer because we've worked together before, but like I think you have to be able to quickly show, I hate to say this word, ROI and value, right? Like, I mean, it's just what it comes down to. I think we as technologists, we as people who get excited about real-time 3D like to show off the shiny things, right? And shiny things are really good to hook people and have a conversation, but you quickly have to move into this is why it's important. This is why it's going to generate value for you and how it makes your life easier. So the crawl, walk, run is basically, you know, that same concept, but set your expectations, like you're saying, find the right people inside of the business that want to sponsor you, that you can help support to drive up sort of their ideas through the chain and demonstrate that value quickly. Otherwise, it becomes skunk works, right? And it goes in a drawer somewhere and somebody forgets about it. So ROI, everyone's favorite
No,
3 letters.
To me,
Yeah.
for the sake of tech, it serves nobody. You have to be focused on what the customer needs.
Exactly.
Rock, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a follow up on the previous one about hiring. Have you found it more challenging as we evolved as industry and well tech as a whole? Really, it's not specific to games. Like you said, you were a C++ guy at the beginning, so was I. And now, of course, there is this new breed of engineers that we are getting out of school that is educated quite differently on different tools, different expectations. And do you find it harder to find people who are at least willing to go down into the deep end of the low level topics?
Yes.
Because with engine, it's not just knowing the engine at hand, it's also being able to debug at the level that sometimes you just cannot avoid it, right? Like if you don't touch it deeper, then you can't fix certain topics or improve them.
100% agree. Yeah. And so for those who may not know, I'll be quick. Unity under the hood is C++ C, right? And then you have a C# editor with C# scripting language. And a lot of newcomers to Unity don't realize that, right? So even when you're using the C# API correctly, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll behave the way you expect it to once you actually compile and publish it and have it deployed on platform, especially once you start using things like the IL2CPP background. So to that end, I have a book that I boot camp every coder through called .NET Memory Management. It does wonders. Highly recommend it. And yes, to your point, the game has changed where more and more I'm finding we have to handhold and boot camp developers, regardless of their education background, and also get them out of the mindset of, because they're all being taught on Python, and Python's a great language, but it's not C#. Right? And so having to try and train them on the specifics of both the Unityisms and the C# language and the underlying C++, it's all critically important.
Well, so kind of wrapping things up, I'd love to get all of your kind of closing thoughts in a way. So we have a lot of innovators in this room. And so we've talked about it in specifics, but at the highest level, you know, why should we all think about and care about implementing this type of technology, either in our projects or in our companies? And so I think you'll each have an interesting perspective on that.
I would say lean forward, and diversity is everything. You know, have a team that's composed of diverse backgrounds, technically, artistically, from a business standpoint. You're going to need that, and it will pay dividends in the long run. You know, you can't just hire developers, can't just hire technical artists. You need script writers. You need people that have a natural understanding for the business, the customer, and can communicate effectively, regardless of what it is you're developing. And so I would lean on diversity.
Yeah, I'll build on that one a little bit too. I think it's, you know, keep focusing on real-time 3D and the whole show don't tell concept, because I fundamentally believe it invites more people into the conversation, right? What that means is people can participate, people can share ideas, and we talked about before, it allows everyone to be a part of the process, which once maybe was just restricted to an engineer and a designer has now been opened up to sales and marketing and production. And like you were saying, diverse opinion is ultimately going to produce a better, more qualified and hardened product. So show don't tell is really what we keep saying.
I'd like to borrow a phrase from one of my old managers because I think it applies quite heavily here. And that is, if I hear it, I'll forget it. If I see it, I might remember it. If I experience it, I'll understand it. And real-time 3D, just like the photograph, is going to revolutionize how we communicate, even the most basic of information packets. So definitely look into how to adopt it. Be smart about it. Look for ROI and all that other stuff. But I would encourage you strongly to be on the forefront of it with products like Unity, because it's coming in very impactful ways, whether we're ready for it or not.
Appreciate that. I agree and understand, like, as we look at, we talked about talent acquisition and onboarding, everybody learns in different ways, whether it's oral or written or, active, tactile. And this type of technology can really bring all three of those things together in a material, interesting way. So thank you both, or all three of you, very much. Appreciate your comments and thoughts and feedback on this and for your questions. And with that, I will give us some housekeeping items for the rest of the evening, but appreciate you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.